RJ, we were met by another podcaster, Chris, and
hmm
he's like, first of all, he's like, ah, you guys are in the same state, you should connect, even though that you have a journey of your own that you are starting to share more now than ever, from what I remember when we first spoke. So before we dive into that, let's just find out who RJ is today. Yeah, what are you up to? What are you excited about?
Well, I'm very busy. I work full time in the prison as a prison guard, and I am a mom of three kids. My oldest just graduated, and my youngest is four, so there's a lot going on. Um, yeah, and other than that, I spend most of my time writing and trying to create some content, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I spend a lot of time outdoors, try to get everybody outdoors, especially in the summer when it's not monsooning, but that's about
I
it.
know we just had all that this past week or yesterday, and I don't know,
Yeah.
probably the past week as well, right? So what are you most excited right now in your life?
Most excited right now in my life. Well, obviously my son graduating is pretty exciting. It's got me stoked. But I'm also super excited about this whole writing endeavor that I'm embarking on. And just coming out and trying to be more vocal, trying to be more extroverted
Hmm.
with people. I'm a little more of an introvert and I like the one-on-one thing. So but it's been so cool to just connect. It's been cool to network with people and just kind of see where all of this goes and see um, the people that it impacts and stuff. So that's my passion right now. It's my hobby. So
That's awesome. And it takes time to get to that level, right? To work your way up and
oh
start
my
sharing
gosh, yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, my very first podcast. Well, the book took me forever to get to the point to writing it, and then I wrote it, and then my very first podcast, which was Chris,
Hmm.
I just almost didn't show up. Like I was sitting there like 5 minutes before, and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm just not doing this. So I've come a long way from there.
Well, that's good. And that was
Yeah.
sometime this year. It was like March or something. Was it around that
Yeah, it
time?
was back in
Okay.
March. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So it hasn't been that long, and already it's becoming a little bit easier each time. So
Good.
yeah,
Good. That's good to hear.
yeah.
So let's start off with like, how'd you get to that point, right? Why are you starting to come out and share things? I mean, what's the reason behind all this?
So I have always been fascinated with humanity. And from a very young age, I was homeschooled and I grew up in the woods and we didn't really have television. And I was outside 24/7 and pretty much by myself. I have four brothers. But I loved humanity and I studied a lot of philosophy and a lot of religion and a lot of history and psychology. Um, I've just always loved humanity. Like it's just fascinating. People fascinate me. And so I studied humanity for like the first 20 years of my life from a distance, kind of like from another, across the fence. Like I was part of it, but not so much. And um excuse me one second. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's a little one. Um but I when I got to my 20s, I entered into humanity and it hit me hard. Um, and I found myself in my own stories that I read about, I guess, is how I would put that. So I had gotten married at 20 years old and had my son. And then a couple years later, we went separate ways. We split up and got divorced. And I never thought I'd be that person. I at that time I was a lay pastor in my church. I was a volunteer archaeologist. I thought I had everything. I thought I had everything down. I was working two jobs and I had my son and everything was great. And life just happens. And here I was, a divorcee, and I was like, this is not who I was supposed to be, but okay, we'll make the best of it. And we were poor. So my son and I just lived in an apartment, and we had macaroni and cheese and cereal. And that was it. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a TV. Um, and I had started dating. I dated just one person. And he was super intuitive. He was very smart, and I really enjoyed my time with him. But he had a temper, And it was just an odd temper. Like he would explode randomly, just over the slightest thing. Like if I took the wrong turn on a road, it would just, ruin his day. And at that time, I was a strong-headed 20-year-old, so I was just like, yeah, I don't have time for this. And I broke up with him, which he did not take very well. He tried, 5 million phone calls. He tried, he would show up at the grocery store. And I just kept telling him it's over, it's done. And then he disappeared for 6 months. And I thought, that was it and it was over. So one day I put my son on the school bus and this ex-boyfriend was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps of my porch. And he was like, "Hey, we just need to talk." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I'm pretty personable." So I brought him in and I made him breakfast and we sat and chatted about life and just where he was at in life and how he was doing. And he seemed like he was doing okay. And I said, it's time for me to go to work. You got to go. And he was like, "You're not going anywhere." And out of his backpack, he pulled a can of mace and a knife. And he was like, "You're not going anywhere." And I kind of just looked at him and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And excuse me one second.
It's okay. It's life.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Like I said, it's very busy.
Uh,
So anyway, I told him I had to go to work. He says, "You're not going anywhere." He pulls the stuff out of his backpack and I'm like, "Okay, is he joking? Is this just a tactic to keep me here?" So I started kind of walking towards the door and I'm like, haha, very funny. And he was like, "No, I'm serious, we're gonna stay here." And I ran for the door. I got halfway out the door and he caught me. He was trying to drag me back in and we're fighting for the door and he sprayed me with a mace. And then he was beating me in the head with a knife. And I kept on fighting, kept on screaming. And I tell you what, when you're screaming for your life, it's the weirdest sound. Like it's just, I've never heard anything like it ever come out of
yeah.
me. Since then, it's just crazy. Um, but he held the knife to my throat, and when he did that, I quit because that's a game changer. So he took me back in the living room, and we sat there, and he zip tied my hands behind my back and my ankles together, and then he told me that this this was going to be for 3 days. He was like, "We're going to stay here for 3 days." The date that he chose was 10, 11, 12. And he said we were going to pretend to be together during that time and it would be like our last time together. And then he was going to kill me and he was going to kill himself. And then he had a bomb in his backpack for the police because he figured the police would show up whenever, I wasn't around and I didn't pick my son up. Um, and that was that. And he went into the bathroom for a minute. So I sat there and tried to digest all of this. And um, was just staring out the window and the sky was just like this pure blue. There were no clouds in it. It was like one of those October mornings. And I just stared out there and I just thought, I'm that girl in the stories. Like I'm the girl in the news report that, he killed her, killed the dog, burnt the house down. And I was like, this can't be me. Like this, somebody has to be here. And it's the funniest things that pop into your head in those moments where I thought my son had just started playing hockey, and I was like, if I don't live, who's going to buy him his hockey helmet?
Yeah.
And I had friends that were struggling with depression, and I was like, if I don't make it out of here, they're going to give up because it's just another bad thing in this world. Um, so I prayed and I was like, "God, you have to get me out of here. You can't, I can't go out this way. Like this cannot be happening. You have to get me out of here." And I just felt this peace come over me, and I heard the words in my head that I'm not promising to get you out of here, but I am promising to be with you through all of it. And it might not sound like much, but in that moment, it just gave me so much peace to know that I wasn't facing it alone. Obviously, like I said, I had screamed when I was trying to get out, and nobody came to the door. And you could hear the cars, the traffic, because I lived in a small town. You could hear the traffic outside. You could hear voices. There were people right on the other side of the
Hmm.
wall. And I'm sitting here about to die, and nobody, you know, nobody's
Yeah.
gonna save me. So just to feel that I wasn't alone, it calmed me down. And so I stopped crying and I was like, okay, like this is game time. Like you got to figure this out. You got to, something. So he came back out and we talked for a little bit, and he had obviously had a break from reality. Like I said, throughout my childhood, studying people and studying humanity, psychology, I had grown up with a mother with undiagnosed mental illness. And I say that because her personalities would change just completely. She would change who she was. Uh, and she was either a very not good person, or she was somebody who was unaware that she could not, she couldn't control herself. And I really believe that she just was unaware of who she was. So I was familiar with the switch up of personalities. I was familiar with how to handle that. You don't react. You don't be surprised when they switch up. You just roll with it.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
he had one personality where he would be like, he'd start crying and he'd be like, I don't want to be doing this to you. I love you. And this just isn't me. And I would try to appeal to that person, and I'd be like, "It's okay, you can just let me go, it's fine, like, I love you too, like, we're gonna be okay," and then his face would just change and his eyes would glass over. I don't know if you've ever experienced somebody that had, a bit of a split personality or just was not in their right mind, but they get them glassy eyes. Um, and he would be like, "No, you're evil and you deserve to die."
Hmm.
So he blamed a couple different groups. He said the mobsters had told him to kill me. Then he said that the bikers had told him to kill me, and then he ended up settling on a demon. He said he had challenged a demon for my soul and that he lost, and it had come to kill me. So we had a
Wow.
lot that we were working
Yeah. Sounds like it.
with. Yeah. Um. So I suggested I play the piano because he liked to listen to me play and sing usually. Um, and he agreed to it. So I've always heard that music will calm people down. I know that, that's a thing. Um, so we sat and I played piano and I sang just everything I could think of. And I wrote a song just about being lost and needing to be found, and it was just almost for both of us. I didn't know where he was at in his mind, and I was just trying to, like I said, just reach some kind of soft spot in there. And it irritated him and he didn't like it, so he said that was enough, and we went into the living room and he said, we're going into phase 2. So he had thrown my cell phone outside whenever I had ran for the door. So he was like, I'm going to get your cell phone and I'm going to go through your contacts and I'm going to see who all your friends are. And he had all the addresses for my family members. And so he said, if I got away, he was going after my family. He was very through, like I said, he was intelligent. He was just not entirely there in his
Yeah.
reality. um, so he zip tied me to the radiator and he went out and got my phone and he came back in. And um, as he was going through the phone, I'm trying to think of a reason to like get untied again. And I said, you know what? Let me clean up the kitchen because there was blood splatter all over the kitchen. And I was like, we're going to be here for a couple days. Just let me go out there. And the front door was in the kitchen. So if I could get the closest I could to that door. Um, and so he agreed. He was like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, I can still see you. And I'm like, okay. So he let me go out into the kitchen and I'm cleaning and I kept bumping the door handle and I could hear and he would just kind of like look and then he'd go back to the phone and then I heard him say, I found something, and I grabbed the door handle and I turned the lock and I ran out and I ran across the street to the little convenience store and ran in and I'm like, you have got to call 911. I was like, there's a man out there trying to kill me and he's chasing after me. And it's a small town. Things like that do not happen. So this poor kid is like, I don't what?
Oh, it's a kid
um,
behind the counter.
yeah, it was definitely a teenager. He was a youngin'. He's just like, what?
Yeah.
So I hid in their back closet. They called the police. The police came. They brought the helicopters, the bomb squad. They brought everything. But he was gone. He had ran after me. He had thrown the bomb into the hedges outside the store, and then
Mm,
he got in his car and he left. So I had to go to a women's shelter for the night. Ended up meeting up with my parents for my son, and we went to the women's shelter, and they found him about 4:30 a.m. the next morning, just wandering around down in the city. Um, and he was incoherent. He was acting insane. Like he acted like he couldn't talk. But then he would know things like the door codes. He knew where they put his backpack, like just
mm.
weird. It was very bizarre. Um, but yeah, that was my traumatic moment, you know. And like I said, I kind of have always felt like I understand psychology and I know how it works, and I know how trauma works. So I was like, no problem. This is easy. Like piece of cake. I got this. So the next night I'm like, I'm going to stay in my apartment because I'm not gonna let this beat me. Like I'm not gonna be scared.
Right.
And for a couple days I was good, you know. I was riding a high. Like I definitely had the high. I was like, I survived. I'm kind of a, you know, a thing.
And
And
you're in your
then
20s, right?
yeah,
Okay.
I was 27. Yep.
Okay.
And you know, everybody, yeah, I went back to work right away, like everything. I was determined, you know, when you fall off the horse, you got to get right back on it. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna, this is not gonna be a thing for me. I got this. And so everybody was just like, what happened to you? And you know, small town, so it's just like all these stories and rumors. And about 2 weeks later, it hit, and it hit like a freight train. It just absolutely annihilated me. I couldn't sleep. I didn't feel safe anywhere. Um, I drank a lot. I was a bartender at the time, but I wasn't really, you know, big into drinking, but I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep at night and I was terrified. Um, and the times when I didn't have my son, I would just go out and sleep in my car and lock my door, and I would not sleep in my house. I slept on my couch. I just couldn't sleep. I'd curl up in the corner. Uh, it was horrible.
So
It hit me really hard.
what flipped for you? You were strong for a while there. Like, did you have the adrenaline? Like you got this, like
Yeah.
you mentioned, and then I mean, what was this big switch? Why?
So a lot of times, in trauma, you do have an adrenaline high just from surviving, because you're just, it's such a rush. The whole entire thing, the whole story is such a rush. And then you just start grappling with the why did it happen, and your body just sabotages itself because your body is like, this could happen again. This could happen now. You know, you start having the flashbacks, and you have nightmares. Like I said, at first, I think I was still on that adrenaline. Like it, you know, I've had adrenaline other times. Like I like to ski and I'm not a good skier. So I get that adrenaline coming down the hill because I'm about to die.
There you go.
and,
Let's keep it going here.
and you're, and then you know, you're praying for dear life on your way down.
Yeah.
But and you'll ride that high for, you know, probably a couple of days. You're gonna feel good because you know, you came close to just completely wiping out on the slope, you know, or you did wipe out on the slope and you
Hmm.
made it and you just have that rush. It was like that rush, but it was just 10 times greater. Like it was just massive. It was like I had a purpose, I had a fire, you know, like I was meant to live, I was meant to survive. And then just all like I said, it just all came crashing down on the um, why he would hate me that much, why he thought I was that evil. A lot of times when I was with my friends, that's all I would ask. I would just be like, "Why? I don't understand." Um, and that came from a lot, like I said, growing up, with my mother having issues. I had a lot of self-worth issues with that, and then through my divorce. And then here was a man that just thought I was too evil to live. And it just eroded at my soul. It just ate at it. Um, and I just turned it all in on myself. And I
So,
thought,
so
I
yeah,
survived, but
yeah,
yeah,
right. Yep. So you started drinking more, and you were
yeah.
going through all this, and then so how long was the process for that part?
Um, I'd say that a year. I was pretty rough for a year. Um, I About a month after it happened, I went to ask for help at a church where I had grown up in the church, and there were some counselors there, and I went to ask for help, and they told me that, we don't have groups until next month. Come back next month. And I remember that moment, and I remember just I'm not a kind of person that asks for help because I think I
Mhm.
know everything.
Yeah, of course. Don't we all? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I ask for help, I'm in a bad place. Like I need it. And to have them turn me away was equally like it was hard. So I turned to pretty much my clientele at the bars, and I got in with the wrong crowd. And they were all into things and mind-numbing things, and they, were kind of like a family, I thought at the time, and everybody, we all look out for each other and we got your back and, rah. And, they promised to keep me safe. They said that, "We'll keep you safe." So I ran with that crowd for about a year. I lived a lifestyle I never thought I would live, but I was just trying to drown it out. I was trying to drown that pain. And, I'd say after a year, I started realizing, I was still in with the crowd, but I started realizing that, like, this isn't it. They don't have my back. They don't care. Um, it's all temporary. It's all superficial. And, we were all just trying to numb some kind of pain. Everybody had some kind of trauma. Everybody had some kind of pain, and we were just trying to get away from it. And, I remember the moment I was sitting on a floor in an apartment, and I was just sitting there, and I felt that the universe, or whatever, whatever had
Yeah.
saved me that day, I felt it be disappointed in me. And, I just felt it. Like, it was like, I gave you the second chance. I gave you this fire and this passion. I gave you everything this love for humanity that you have, and you're just, what are you doing? You're sitting down in the mud. What are you doing? Like, get up. And I'm like, I can't get up. Like, you broke me. You destroyed me, and I can't get out of this. And, you tell me how.
All right.
Um, So, years went on and I slowly came out of it. I did different things, and that's a lot of what my book talks about. And that's why I wrote the book, because there's a lot out there, and I'm not knocking it, but there's a lot of like um fluffy stuff, I guess, for
Okay.
trauma. And maybe that's the incorrect way to say it. But everybody just says, think happy thoughts, and try to be cheerful, and life gets better. And um motivational things, I love them too. I read
Hmm.
them, I post them. Um but in those times, that stuff just isn't anything at all. You're numb, you're hurt, and you want practical advice. You want practical tips that are going to get you out. Um, because you get to a certain point, as I did, where you don't want to go on anymore. You want the world to stop. You want it to quit. Life keeps going. You have to keep going to work. I had a son. I had to keep being a mom, and I couldn't take the time to process any of this pain. I couldn't process any of it. I had to keep on pushing on, and it was just I was fragmenting. I was forgetting things. I had memory loss. I had a decent concussion, so I was just struggling with all these issues. Um, so that's why I put the book together, because it's the actual physical things that I did to heal my mind. And I still have glitches, I still have moments, but they're not too often, thankfully. um but it's perspective. You change your perspective. And I think that's kind of my entire life goal and my entire passion. As I said, I worked at a women's shelter years later, for domestic violence. So I worked with a lot of victims, and I saw that side of it. And I said, I want to go into the prison system because I want to see that side of it and I want to understand. So I asked to be the chaplain. I applied to be the chaplain at the prison, and somebody was already there. And I talked to the chaplain, and he said, why don't you be a guard? Just get your foot in the door, see what you think of it. And I said, all right, let's do this. And I've been a guard ever since.
Yeah. So it's a women's prison, is that right?
It is a male prison.
Oh, male prison. Okay.
Yes. It's a male prison. It's smaller as far as the state goes.
Mhm.
But like I said, I am very passionate in solving the problem. I think because my love of my mother and watching how she was growing up, I've always wanted to solve this issue of the mind. Um, what is good and evil? What makes somebody justified in what they do? You know,
Yeah. So when you're a guard, what are you solving?
I am studying.
Okay.
I'm studying a lot. Um, initially, initially I went in and I was like, I'm going to change the world, because that's what I always think.
Why not?
I'm going to change everybody. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to be fine. They're going to understand what I'm saying, and they're going to change, and it's all going to be great. And nothing bad will ever happen to people again, because these people will stop doing this.
Sounds good.
Right? It
Yeah.
sounds so simple. And you get in there and you find all these ethical, um, there's just so much, like, it's just environmental and genetic and ethical and physical, and everything's just all mashed together, and who's good and who's bad and who is justified in what actions they took and what makes it right and what makes it wrong. And it's just this amazing plethora of what.
Yeah.
um and I have found that my passion is to change the perspective. So a lot of the inmates in there did not grow up in great environments, and they don't know any different. They don't know any better. They never knew anything different. So just teaching them, not teaching them, but just showing them, hey, there's a whole other lifestyle. There's a whole other world. There's a whole world out there. It's different and beautiful and crazy. Like, you can do so much more than the concrete that you come from.
Mhm.
um, the genetics, learning how to deal with just the way their mind is. That is the way their mind is. But you can take something that was used inappropriately, and you can turn it, kind of like a river. You can turn it into like a different outlet. So I worked with the adults for several years, and now I'm in the juvenile program. I work with the juveniles, and you can definitely, it's very, what do you say? It stands out more with the juveniles. But you have a child that he's an extrovert and he's great with his peers. He's just super wild and funny, and everybody follows what he does. But he used that in gang violence and got everybody to stab each other and shoot each other,
Yeah.
and that's why he's in there. But to take that and be like, hey, you know what? You're an amazing leader. Like, people follow you. What if you got them to follow you to do this?
Right.
So just re-diverting that. And so it's been interesting to talk to, you have burglars, you have thieves, you have drug dealers, and murderers, you have, serial killers, things like that. So talking to them one on one and just being like, so what happened? What happened? What made you wake up that day and just be like, you know what? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm,
Hmm.
going to kill this person. And they've been very open, and they they tell me, exactly what was going through their mind. And to everybody that does what they do, it's normal to them, just the same as it is to me. We all have our reasons for doing things, and just giving that different option to people, being like, okay, I see you, and I can, kind of understand maybe why you did what you
Right.
did. But what if you did this? Or what if you seem great at this? What if you did that? Um, and just kind of, like I said, redirect it, put it in a different perspective. Um, I know that meds are a really big thing, obviously, in this day and age. Everybody's medicated, and there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. But I feel like anything like therapy, medication, it should all just be, I have to be careful saying this, but a stepping stone to becoming your full potential, to being better, to being healed, not a crutch. And I don't know if you've ever read The Body Keeps the Score.
No.
Um, but it was written by a psychiatrist, and he has a big German name that I can't remember. Bessel von Kirk, I think, is his name. I'm reading it right now, and he said that ever since they came out with depression medication and started prescribing it to people, depression has risen 3 times in the United
Mm.
States. And like I said, I'm not knocking it, because there are definitely situations where it helps people and it helps with the chemical balance. Um, but I just feel like humanity is so much stronger and so much more resilient than we think we are. Like, our minds are so strong, we can heal, but we have to put the work into it. Like, we
Yeah.
have to. I had to consciously decide to, I don't want to have panic attacks anymore. I don't want to have nightmares anymore. I had to consciously, like, I didn't have to just say it, like, I don't want to do this, but I was like, what do I have to do to not experience this anymore? And for panic attacks, it was recognizing that they were coming. You'll feel a trigger, something will happen, the sky, a sound, something, and it's coming. So I will immediately ground myself. Like, I will, like, it sounds weird, but I will touch something, a stone, a tree, something, and then I will think, like, I will tell myself, I'm in this moment right now. I'm here right now. Like, I am, right now I'm sitting in my dining room, and I'm talking to John Emery, and I'm not tied up in a room somewhere. It's not a thing. Um, Learning how to talk myself out of it, and learning how to just, it's discipline, and you have to keep doing it and keep practicing it, and it works. And that's why that's why I'm trying to tell people, to help people, because you can do it. You can beat your mind,
Hmm.
you know. And like I said, you'll still have fragments of moments, but you will be in control. And I went on, I'm a single mom with 3 kids, and I work full time, and I managed to get my own place out in the country, and it's peaceful, and it's doable, you know. Like, you can go through things, you could be absolutely broken and at the bottom, and you can say, "You know what? I don't want to live this way. How do I get out of this?" And just take it one step at a time and get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were talking about being more present, not focused on the future and the past. So when you're grabbing your stone or stump or whatever you want to call it, um, that's you being present, right? So you can feel, you can
Yes.
touch, you can smell, taste, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
that's how you show up. Um, I wanted to ask you a question. So you're talking about fluff, right? You said fluff before,
Yes.
so you laugh. But what is in your book that is not considered fluff to you? That is, I guess you could say is a little bit different from what you hear and read out there.
Um, it's actual concrete steps, and I was thinking about it today, and I was like, I feel like 12 12 items or 12 points was a lot for people. I should probably
Cut it down.
condense them.
Let's go with one. Let's start there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
But they're not ideas. It is actually what I did. It's actually things that worked for me. So the
yeah.
first one, like I said, is learning to identify your triggers. So once you know, like I know the fall, I know the end of August and September, just bad time of year for me. The weather starts to change, school buses come around, and I will just be moody and weepy. And it used to hit me and I didn't know what was going on. I would just be crying and I'm like, why am I so emotional? Hormones aren't that bad. And then I would be like, it's fall. The weather's changing. My mind just remembers and my mind's just like, yeah, we're not functioning right now. So knowing that that's coming. So not booking yourself, not working overtime, not, just taking it easy during those times. If there's a time of year that's bad for you, just make sure you take time, make sure you have time to think, and whatever it is that recharges your batteries, like make sure you're doing that. Um, and then the second one is leave. Go travel, go places that are away from whatever it was or wherever it was. Get away from it, because when you go out into the world and you see different places, it recalibrates your mind. You see that there's more to the world. It's bigger. For me, it's hiking. I love to hike. I'll go out in the woods and I'm okay. I'm better when I come back. That works. Adrenaline was the one. So if you're not a great skier like me, go hit those slopes and, try not to die. That's a huge one. That one, I worked on a horse farm for years and they're horrible creatures. I love them, but they were bred for the racetracks and they
Oh.
were so hyper, and they gave them so many supplements that they were just jittery, and if they saw their shadow, they're just trying to climb into your lap. Well, they're 1,000 pounds and you're like, get off. So you repeatedly would just almost die. You'd be getting bit and stomped on and kicked, and you were constantly facing life and death, and that farm was a really, really big healing thing for me.
Hmm.
Because when you're facing an animal like that, or facing any kind of situation where you're absolutely completely focused on that moment, your mind relaxes because you're not thinking about anything. You're not having bad memories. You're not thinking about anything at all, just survive.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling people to go out and like do dangerous things, but get your heart, get your
Get in
heart
there.
going a little bit. Yeah, get it
Yeah.
pumping. Um, Talking. Therapy was not great for me. I did not do well with it. Not everybody some therapists are great, some are not. Mine just weren't the greatest. It wasn't my thing.
Mhm.
Um, but just talking to people, like my friends. A couple of my friends were gracious and they let me tell the story multiple times and hash through it and how I felt. It's
That's
important
good.
to talk. Yeah.
Yeah. I just real quick on that.
Yeah.
So you found your friends to be more willing to support you, where I found it to be more strangers than anything
Okay.
else. So
Yeah.
take it as you want, but you kind
No.
of go ahead.
No, that's what I mean. Like some people, I've heard people have amazing therapists that really help them through things. Or family. My family didn't know what to do with me. My family, they tried, but they had no idea what to do with me. They were just
Mhm.
like, I,
Yeah.
I think she's okay. Just leave her alone,
Right.
Um, but it was my friends at work. Yeah, but they had also been through things, and I think there is some kind of a connection, a bonding amongst people
I can
who've
see
seen
that.
some life,
Right. That makes sense.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I was very blessed, very fortunate to have friends like that. Absolutely. So talking is a concrete thing. Um, your environment, you create your environment, and there's a million shows on organization. I'm a chaotic organizer. That's what I call myself.
You are not, or you are?
A chaotic organizer.
You are.
I'm organized, but it looks chaotic.
Yeah. So it's like a messy desk, but it's
Exactly.
somewhat neat.
Yes, but I
That's
know where everything is.
that's all that matters. And nobody else is touching it.
Um, but your environment you create,
Hmm.
give yourself peaceful places, spots to be, there's your buddy.
That's right.
um, make your home a peaceful place. And, maybe that's not always possible, but it's another really big one. If you can be at home and feel safe and comfortable. For me, I had to move, obviously. I couldn't be in that apartment anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but creating, and that's something you have to do. Like, you can't just live somewhere and expect it to be. Like, you purposely create the peace. You create the smells, you create the sounds, you create the look of it so that it's just calming. When you walk into it, it's calming. Um, when you have children, it's not so easy.
That's for sure.
But I have basement steps that I go to. If I need my calming time, I just go there and shut the door. They
Shut the
can't
door.
find me.
Yeah,
They can't
that's
find me
great.
for a couple of minutes. They don't know where.
That's funny. So
Yeah.
how does somebody find your book? And,
You can go on Amazon. It's The
mhm.
Girl That Got Out by R.J. Fisher. Or you can go to my website. It's www.girlthatgotout.com. No the. Book has the. The website does not have the.
Gotcha. Okay. And how can somebody contact you or connect with you? I guess if you wanted to talk and help them, with whatever they're going through.
The website. If you go to the
Okay.
website, it has all my social media links and it has an email list there. So definitely 100% email me and we'll chat and I can, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I have one question for you that I ask everybody at the end. So what are three key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Okay. Hmm. Perception. As I said, perception is just everything, right?
Hmm.
You can be in a wonderful place and perceive it as terrible, and you can be in a terrible place and perceive it as wonderful. Um, Always keep that strong perception of reality. And the reality is we are amazing, intricate creatures in an amazing, intricate world. And we get jaded a lot. So keep the good perception. Um, Secondly, keep going in baby steps, just each moment. Um, I always try to do the bigger picture and I always try to, gotta get all
Yeah.
this done, save the
Yep.
world. um, And some days you're just down and you can't do anything. And it's just got to be that one baby step. Like, okay, I just need to write one sentence today. Just write one sentence and it'll take off. Um, and third, like I said, well, perception, baby steps, and just remember the amazing capacity that humans have. That's just what I learned. Like, we're resilient and we're, like I said, just so absolutely intricate. There's so many facets to humanity and it's crazy. And we sell ourselves short with screens and with the pursuit of money and all these things. We have so much more capability and so much more power than we think we do.
You're absolutely right.
That's it.
All that, like you said, screens and everything like that just takes everything away from you. Um,
Yeah.
it's fortunate and unfortunate for where we are today.
Yes.
It's how you use it. But RJ, you shared a lot. We could have went through all your steps, I'm sure, if you wanted to, but
No, that's
I,
okay. Like I said, I think I need to condense them down.
no. No. You probably don't need to. You probably just have people focus on maybe three first, and then get to
Yeah.
step four or whatever, right?
Right.
But I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing your journey and how people could connect and learn more about you and how to get through things in life too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.